In this lesson, we're going to talk about perimeter. But in order to talk about perimeter, the first thing we need to discuss is length. Length is the concept of some sort of measurement on a line of an object. It doesn't necessarily have to be on a line, but the idea is the measurement is designed to consider one line. On that line, we need to create some sort of standard unit, such as an inch, which you're very familiar with. The first one we'll discuss is the metric system. The metric system is used by about 90% of the world. It's pretty much everywhere except for right here. And in the metric system, their basic unit of length is the meter. They also use units such as the centimeter, which is about the width of your pinky, that's 1/100th of a meter, and the kilometer, that is 1,000 meters. A kilometer is a good bit shorter than a mile. It's about 5/8 of a mile. The other unit system is our US customary system, in which we use feet and inches, yards, miles, etc. Our usual setup is there's 12 inches in a foot, 3 feet in a yard, 5,280 feet in a mile. Now that last number you might not have seen before, maybe you have and just forgot it, but it's one to just keep in mind and we'll use it more in the future. The metric system really is a better system. The problem is that us as Americans, we're just so used to the other one that we think of lengths and measures in terms of miles, and so it's difficult for us to switch to kilometers and meters and centimeters. However, if we were just to take one leap in one generation, we'd be completely switched over. Here's a comparison of how we look at these two systems. For an inch ruler, you have to use fractions. So the largest mark is usually a half-inch mark, and then you've got successively smaller marks as we break things into pieces. 1/2, 1/4, 1/8, 1/16. And so if you don't like fractions, you really should like the metric system, because the metric system uses decimals. This mark represents half the centimeter, or as you can see, 0.5 centimeters, and then it's broken into small pieces. There's 10 per centimeter, also known as millimeters, but they're 0.1 centimeters. Just to give you a feel for the difference between these, a yard is roughly from where your ear is to your fingertips, and a meter is about where your shoulder is to your fingertips. A meter is just a little bit longer than a yard. It's about 3 inches longer or so. In the metric system, we need prefixes to work on our units, and it's more than just the meters. It can be used on anything. Kilo is a prefix that means 1,000. I mentioned the kilometer a minute ago and I said it was 1,000 meters. Similarly, hecto is 100, deca is 10. You've got your base unit, but then deci is 1/10. Centi, like the centimeter we mentioned a minute ago, is 1/100th. So a centimeter is 1/100th of a meter, and then milli means 1,000th. That's all we're talking about when we refer to these negative exponents, is just think of them as 1/10, 1/100, 1/1000, or even decimal points make sense as well. So now that we've talked about length and units a little bit, we can finally talk about perimeter. Perimeter is basically the distance around the figure. In most applications, you simply need to add up the lengths of the sides. However, there might be curved sides and things like that. So in that case, we talk about circumference. Circumference is the distance around a circle, and there are formulas that we use for that. Remember, a circle has a center point, and the points of the circle have a fixed distance called the radius from that center point. So this distance r is the distance from the center to the outside of the circle that stays the same. The diameter of the circle is a line segment that passes through the center and both sides of the circle. It's actually exactly twice as long as the radius. And then the number pi. The number pi is an irrational number, meaning it cannot be written as a fraction, and it's approximately 3.14. I say approximately because it's not exactly 3.14, or you could write it as a fraction. It goes on and on and on forever, and so it's used in a lot of circle formulas. With that said, though, be careful when you use pi. 3.14 will suffice for all of the examples that I give, but say you're doing some online homework, it might expect you to be a little bit more precise, in which case, if it's not taking your answer, try using the pi key on your calculator for homework rather than just typing in 3.14. Now, some formulas that come out of this. Remember, perimeter is nothing more than adding up the four sides. So when I look at a square, all four sides are the same length. And so 4 times that side length shouldn't come as much of a surprise if you were to just add the four sides together. Similarly, a rectangle, we could get 2 times the length plus 2 times the width. All that is this length, and then this width, and this width. You'll notice there's 2 of each as you add them together. Then the circle, 2 pi r is the pretty standard formula for the circumference of a circle, or you can use pi d. Given that you have 2 formulas, you'll just pick whichever one matches up with whether you're given a radius or a diameter. And for all of your other shapes, if you have triangles, trapezoids, etc., just add up your side lengths. You can write a formula, but it's a waste of time. Let's apply these concepts in the following examples. Find the perimeter of a triangle with sides 4 centimeters, 8 centimeters, and 6 centimeters. If I were to draw that, it would look something like this. And to find the perimeter, we'll just add up the 3 sides. 4 plus 6 plus 8 is 18 centimeters. Find the circumference of a circle with diameter 1.5 meters. Here's your circle. And again, your diameter would be 1.5 meters. The diameter is the distance straight across. The formula that we have is C equals. Now you have 2 choices. There's 2 pi r and there's pi d. In this case, I'm given the diameter, so let's use pi d. Pi is approximately 3.14, or use the button on your calculator, times 1.5. Note that if you use the button on your calculator, your answer may not match up perfectly with mine. Your answer may be just a little bit larger than mine. I get 4.71 meters. By the way, make sure you put a unit on all of your answers. These are lengths. Find the perimeter of a square with side length 3 inches. So we've got 3 inches all the way around. And we could use the formula. It won't hurt. The perimeter is just 4 times the side length, or you can even just see it's 4 times by looking at the picture, and we get 12 inches. Next examples. Find the perimeter of a rectangle with length 2 meters and width 5 meters. Remember, this is perimeter, so you might also consider there's a 2-meter length here and a 5-meter length here. You could use the formula, or you could just add them together. I think I prefer to add these together this time. 2 plus 5 plus 2 plus 5 is 14 meters. That's actually a very large rectangle. Find the perimeter of a trapezoid with side lengths 4 feet, 10 feet, 8 feet, and 5 feet. I know I did that out of order, but it's okay. A trapezoid is a figure that has one pair of parallel sides. So you'll notice I drew the 8 and the 10 to be parallel. That's probably what it is, but you never really know. Either way, the perimeter is just going to add up the 4 values. We've got 4 plus 8 plus 5 plus 10, and if I do that, I get 27 feet. Also a very large trapezoid. Find the circumference of a circle with radius 3 1/4 inches. 3 1/4. We don't really like messing with mixed numbers, but it's pretty easy to change it. There's a little thing you can do in your calculator to turn these to decimals quickly. You take the fraction part and do 1 divided by 4, and then add the whole number part. If you do that, you'll get 3.25 inches. Again, do the numerator divided by the denominator, and then add the whole number. We have a circumference. We're given the radius, so let's use 2 pi r. We'll use 2. I'll use 3.14 for pi, and the radius is 3.25. I get 20.41 inches. And again, your answer may be slightly larger than mine if you were using the pi key instead of 3.14. Now let's do this based on a picture. We want to find the perimeter of this figure. It's called a semicircle, just meaning half, that's what semi means. And it's the closed off top half of the circle. So when I say closed off, I mean that this length right here is part of this figure. I can't forget about that. I might point out this is a half circle as far as lengths are concerned, and we are given the diameter of that circle. So this is the strategy we will take. The first thing we want to do is find this length. And often when I do this, I call this the curved portion. You'll simply take the formula that you're familiar with for circumference, but I need to cut it in half. So I've got 1/2, and then I pick a circumference formula. Again, it's half a circle, that's why I'm putting a 1/2. Since I'm given the diameter, I'll use pi d. So then I get 1/2. Pi is 3.14. D is 100. And when I do that, I get 157 millimeters. If you're using your pi key here, your answer will differ a good bit from mine. However, that answer is just as acceptable. Now that's actually not the whole perimeter. Notice all I did was I found this length right here. The figure also has this length as part of the outside of that figure. So the total perimeter would be 157 for the curved portion, plus the 100 side, and I get 257 millimeters. Let's do another one. This time, if I were to fill in the circle, you'll see that this is a quarter circle. And because it's a quarter circle, we're going to use 1/4 when I do the next formula. In addition, we are given the radius of this circle. So let's start off with the curved portion. Again, that is this length right here. With the curved portion, since it's 1/4 of a circle, I'm going to put a 1/4. And then I'm going to use 2 pi r because I have a radius given to me. So I have 1/4 times 2 times 3.14 times 3. I get 4.71 centimeters. Now keep in mind that is not the answer. I need to find the distance around the figure. So I need to add 3 for this length. But, fair warning, you also need to add 3 for this length. Even though it's not written, it's still one of the sides for the outside. So for my total perimeter, I get 4.71 plus 3 plus 3, which is 10.71 centimeters. Last question. To find the perimeter of this figure, I would normally need to figure out the distance around the figure. The problem is some of the distances aren't given to me. Now you could try to estimate them, and as long as you estimate them with the right proportions, you're fine. But what I really want to look at is that it's clearly possible to figure out not necessarily the individual lengths, but it's definitely possible to find a couple of sum lengths. This length right here represents the sum of this length and this length. There's really only one possibility. It has to be 10 centimeters. Why? Because this length is 20, and this length is 10, and these lengths together will have to add to 20. Similarly, this one would be 5 centimeters. And now we can just add up all the numbers to get it. Our perimeter would be 20 plus 10 plus another 10 plus the 10 that I found plus the 5 that I found plus the 5 that was given, and we end up with 60 centimeters total.